Okay. Good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Please raise your hand if you can hear me properly. Okay, great. Excellent. So now, as you all know, we have spent past 1.5 weeks going through the official CLAT 2020 paper. And since it was the first week of our new session, this is why I wanted to teach the entire CLAT paper to you myself, so you get a proper idea of the paper, and also you would get a kind of proper idea of like how to go about solving each and every section. From my side, whatever it was that I wanted to tell you all, I have told you all, and I think more or less for each subject, it is pretty much covered the topics which I would expect all of you to know. Okay. Now, for our regular classes, obviously, I don't, think I will have the energy to teach each and every subject, and neither I think it is conducive also for one teacher to be teaching every subject. Okay, I think you should have a mix. Yes, one teacher can teach 2 subjects, but I don't think one teacher should be teaching all the 5 subjects. Okay, so while I will always be with you primarily for legal, sometimes I will jump into logical reasoning, English, GK, etc., etc. But there should be dedicated teachers for the other subjects as well. So having said that, I would like to introduce Rishabh Sir. Rishabh Sir is my junior from NUJS, very much still in NUJS right now. And as I mentioned, another teacher who we will have is Shavik Sir. Shavik Sir is currently an assistant professor at NUJS, and he was my senior at NUJS as well. So you will have some sort of diversity between, very, very kind of not very senior in age, but senior definitely in experience, like Shavik Sir, senior teachers, as well as in that sense, I would call myself somewhere in the mid-level then, and then Rishabh Sir is somebody you can relate with quite immediately, right? He's like somebody you will actually meet if at all you clear the CLAT and get into NUJS. He will be your 5th year. So make sure that you keep him happy so that he can save you from the ragging. Okay. So having said all of this, without any further ado, let me just introduce Rishabh a little bit. So as I mentioned, he's 4th year in NUJS right now. I have spoken to him quite a bit. He's preparing his own materials as well as teaching those materials. Okay, so he's quite talented, and he's quite looking forward also to this teaching opportunity. I think that you all can gain a lot from him. And I think that you all should not let go of this opportunity very, very easily. Okay, so without further ado, Rishabh, please take over and kind of address your students. Yeah, Rishabh, if you can hear me, I think your mic is on mute. Right. Yes. Very good.
Yes, am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Hey guys, I'm Rishabh. As Vishruth has said, I'm Rishabh. I'm a 4th year student, and I see that some of you have already joined. But this is the first. First of all, I'd like to say that this is the first time I'm doing this. This is the first time I am hosting a meeting by myself. So I have no idea how to interact with you guys. So if Vishruth sir could just help me with that, when when one of them raises their hands or something like that, just let me know. And
Sure. So I'm around. I'm available on this meeting. And I'll be here for this entire week. Whenever you all are meeting new teachers or anything, I will be around as well. And I will keep dropping by in the other classes also. So specifically right now, if you need somebody to, speak up or anything like that, who raise their hand, I will unmute them and things like that. I will moderate this meeting. Okay.
yes, and I will watch don't worry guys, I will watch a YouTube tutorial on this, and from next time we won't be needing him. We can do this on our own.
Yeah.
And so before we begin, I have joined the Telegram groups also, and I will first like to talk about how I want to go about with this class, with how I want to go our English classes to go. Okay. And if you have some inputs on that, you can always ping on the Telegram group. You can always come up with your own inputs, and that's very, that would be very helpful, because I'm in the process of preparing my own material, but I've only just started now. And this is a very growing process, and CLAT is also a very unpredictable exam. It keeps changing every year. You don't know what is going to happen next. So I would also like your input on how you want these classes to go. But today I'll give a basic overview. First of all, what I'm planning to do is having a certain portion of the class, like half or say 45 minutes or 1 hour. I will be taking one issue. So it's like today, because there were a lot of questions on figures of speech in CLAT, we are going to start with figures of speech. And after that, we will do some reading comprehension exercises, like 2-3 passages every day. Today is the first class, so I'll start with just one passage. And from next class, we will do 2-3 passages in the class. I will give you weekly worksheets also. I will give you weekly worksheets, one worksheet related to what we have discussed in the class. So like today, rather tonight you'll all get a document, a worksheet in the Telegram group, and you have to send me your answers, your solutions in some time, because it's going to be it's a very simple exercise. So I'll give you say 12 hours or something like that. So you have to submit it by then, and then I'll evaluate and we'll discuss that. And another worksheet that I'll give you is, I will, apart from discussing passages, I will give you, including the passages that we discuss in the class, I will give you some additional passages every week for you to practice in a timed setting. And I will not be, because it's not possible for me to proctor all of you, if unless there's a mock test. If there's a mock test, then obviously I'll proctor you, but I can't do that on a daily basis. I also have other commitments. So what we'll do is, I will give you some reading comprehension, and because you all want to be lawyers and you all want to clear this exam, and i I expect you to be honest, and I expect you to time yourself, and I expect you to try to do better with every single worksheet. And you should get in the practice of reading and trying to comprehend passages, because that's essentially what the paper has become. So now I would like to start with today's class. uh, 1 second. uh, Vishnu sir, can you see the
Yes, it's visible.
presentation? Yeah. So so figures of speech. So you see, we say that it's raining cats and dogs when it's raining heavily, but is it really raining cats and dogs? Do you think that animals fall out of the sky whenever there is rain? So that is what essentially what a figure of speech is. It is a departure from the ordinary form of expression, like it's raining heavily, or it's pouring, or the ordinary course of ideas in order to produce a greater effect. Because you want to, this is a literary device that you use to enhance the effect of whatever you're trying to communicate. Okay, so this is what a figure of speech is. So like this is a cartoon. So when there any questions, I was only using a figure of speech, which means that the boss, because, and this will always serve you. The boss is always right. When the boss says any questions, it's better to have answers ready rather than questions. Always remember that when boss asks any questions, it's usually a figure of speech. So what is a figure of speech? Getting into the nitty gritty of the device, it's figurative language in the form of a word or a phrase. So you can see brave like a lion, brave as a lion. He was a Goliath in this particular field or something like that, which means This is actually very interesting, you know. It comes from the biblical story of David and Goliath, where Goliath was this huge, giant, monstrous soldier of a huge army, and David was a very tiny 16, 17-year old, or even younger than that boy who was a shepherd. And so Goliath came up to they had a fight, and Goliath tried to kill David. But what David did, he was a shepherd, so he was used to chasing away wolves using a slingshot. So he made a sling, he tied a stone, and then he flung it in Goliath's neck, and Goliath died. And that's how we come up with the underdog story, or the underdog phrase of David beating Goliath, where David was the underdog and he defeated Goliath. That's where it comes from. That's also figure of speech. You read that so many times in the paper, or if you have watched Suits, then they also say that a lot of times when the big company sues a very small guy, then it's like a David and Goliath fight. So that's what a figure of speech is. It's trying to make the language, the point that you're trying to communicate, much more strong, much more attractive to the listener or to the reader. It can be a special repetition, arrangement, or omission. We will discuss all of these in details. It can be a special repetition, arrangement, or omission of words with literal meaning, or a phrase with a specialized meaning not based on the literal meaning of the words. What does this mean? This is the kind of long passage with a lot of commas that you should get used to reading, because if you start reading Indian judgments, then most of the judges all write like this. So then you have to decode what this phrase is that this sentence is trying to say. And basically, what it's saying is that a figure of speech is essentially a word or a phrase that is used in a non literal sense. Like I said, raining cats and dogs, David and Goliath. David and Goliath are fictional characters from the Bible, they are not coming here. So, used in a non-literal sense for rhetorical or vivid effect. What does rhetorical mean? Rhetorical means being persuasive, being effective, being a persuasive speaker, or an effective writer, using the smallest words to say the most, is basically what figures of speech help you do, or vivid effect. Okay. So non-literal sense. What do you mean? You don't take that word in the literal sense. You don't say that, like cats and dogs are falling out of the sky. So they are plainly defined as saying one thing in terms of something else. So it depends on the whole phrase, on the colloquial meaning. Then it depends on the context at what that figure of speech is trying to do. So it's very simple. Okay. Whenever you say something, but you don't mean it literally, you are using a figure of speech. So when you have a bad day, you go home, your mother asks you, "How are you?" You say, "I'm depressed." Based on one day, you're not depressed, but you're sad, and you're trying to be more persuasive in indicating to her that you are sad, which is what you're doing. You're using a figure of speech. Okay. So this is the cats and dogs example that we already discussed. So there are basically four types of figures of speech. So figures of speech, if we try to classify them, they come into four categories. So the first is based on construction, which is anticlimax, climax. Then there are based on resemblance, simile, metaphor, personification, based on association, metonymy, synecdoche, based on contrast, antithesis, epigram. So what is a simile? Beginning with resemblance. Simile. A simile is a figure of speech in which a comparison is made between two things. Two things are compared which are different but have some kind of commonality. And usually when you compare it, you say like, as, or do. You are showing in the sentence that you are comparing these two things. So, for example, as the heart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. Or should be paint. As the heart paineth after the water brooks, so paint my soul after thee, O God. What does it say? So human beings, we all live like more than around 90% of human beings live near a water source, a fresh water source. So our hearts desire water, running water, fresh water. So what's a water brook? It's a source of running water, fresh water. As so, this example is saying that as our hearts, as human beings' hearts desire water, that is how my soul desires you, God. That is how my soul goes after you, follows you, God. These are both examples of simile. My dog is as smelly as dirty socks, which most dogs are, and this pizza is as cold as ice. But as we all know, cold pizza also tastes good. Pizza is the only thing that tastes good both hot and cold. And then there is metaphor. Metaphor is basically simile without that comparative indicator, which is like as. So you don't say that this is like something else, but it is understood that you're trying to do that. You're trying to say that something is like something else. So the camel is a ship of the desert. How is a camel a ship of the desert? The camel is an animal, the ship is a man made object of transportation. So the camel, because this is so it's all these figures of speech, you have to think about them on a deeper level. So the camel, because the desert is vast, the desert from where when you stand somewhere in the middle of the desert, it looks vast. It looks like never ending. There's the horizon also. The sun also sets in a similar way like the sea. So the desert is basically a sea of sand, and a camel helps you cross that sea. So a camel is a ship in the sea, which is desert, the sea of sand, which is desert, which is why the camel is a ship of the desert. This is an example of metaphor. Now, one question that should come to your mind, the first question that should come to your mind is, why can't we use this sentence as a simile? What's the harm in that? What is the problem with saying the camel or a camel is like a ship of the desert? There's no problem. There's no problem. It's just not as effective. You understand what I'm, this is a very important point. So when you write something, as a writer, as a reader, what you want, as an editor, even what you want. So if when you all if you go to law school, and if you want to join the law review, which a lot of you would try to join, almost everyone wants to join the law review, and if you get on the editorial board of your college's law review, then you'll also have to edit writings, and then you'll understand, you'll see that when you write, you have to say the most things that you want to say in the least number of words. So you can say that a camel is like a ship of the desert, but when you use that simile, you're using an extra word. Just like when you say the camel is a ship of the desert, you are eliminating that extra word, and it just looks more crisp. It sounds more crisp. I'll give you another example. When you say he was like a lion on the battlefield, and he was a lion on the battlefield, or she was a lion on the lioness on the battlefield, whatever. What is the difference? They're trying to say the same thing, but they're using fewer words. The second one, metaphor, is using fewer words. It seems more effective. It sounds more effective. So you also have to understand when to use which figure of speech. We'll discuss all of that in details. Don't worry. And you'll also get exercises. So, like I said, every simile can be compressed into a metaphor, and every metaphor can expand into a simile. Akash fought like a lion. Akash was a lion in the fight. Simile, metaphor. This is Akash fighting a lion who has got hold of Akash's goat, maybe. I don't know. Next, coming to the third figure of speech, personification. Personification is when you give inanimate objects or abstract things, human, you gave them human spirit, you gave them human traits, human behaviors, things like that. You say you treat them as sentient beings. That's what you do. You treat inanimate objects as sentient beings. Sentient means someone who can think, who can use their intellect, who can use their brain, think for themselves. Okay. So personification occurs when the author or speaker gives human characteristics to non-human objects. The lightning danced across the sea. The lightning does not dance across the sea, but it gives a more vivid description. So when the author writes, the lightning struck the sea. What do you imagine as a reader? If you close your eyes, you see that lightning is striking at a single point on the sea. And when they say that the lightning danced across the sea, then it just becomes more dangerous. It has a more adventurous feel to it. So if someone is sailing, like if the protagonist is sailing at that time when the lightning is dancing across the sea, then it sounds like a, they're being more daring than they actually are. And this is all done to elevate the experience that the reader or the listener has. Personification. Rather, the trees scream in the raging wind. Trees don't do that. Humans scream. If you go on social media these days, everyone is screaming at everyone else. So we see that human beings scream, but when there are heavy winds, then the trees make so much noise that it seems like they are screaming, and it sounds good. The trees scream in the raging wind. Then the next one is apostrophe. An apostrophe is a direct address to the dead, to the absent, or to a personified object or idea. This is a special form of personification. Okay. So Mary Shelley Frankenstein. This phrase passage is from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So this was also a very interesting book. So Mary Shelley was the wife of P.B. Shelley, Percy Bryce Shelley, the guy who wrote Ozymandias. If you are in CBSE board, then you would have read that poem. Like when I was in class 10th, I guess, we had that poem, Ozymandias. Oh, look at me, mighty, and wherever there's a broken statue, and it basically says that everything ends up destroyed. So there's no meaning of all these chest thumping things that rulers do. So P.V. Shelley and Mary Shelley and one of their friends, uh, Lord Byron, if I'm not wrong, they were holidaying somewhere in Greece or somewhere, and then they just started a challenge that let's all write stories or poems or whatever. Let's write something, and whoever writes the book or story, poem or whatever fastest wins. The three of them. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein in less than a year. Just give me 1 second. Excuse.
Yes, Shantanu, you have a doubt?
Yes, sir. Sir, are we supposed to make notes or will the PPT be shared?
PPT will be shared with you. PPT will be
Okay, sir.
shared with you. If you want, see, I always advise students to still make notes, right? Because like something might be written in PPT and something extra might come inside your mind. Even when my teachers used to teach using slides in college, I would still keep a notebook and pen open because maybe I had some thoughts based on what was written on the PPT, right? It's not just like noting down whatever is written over there. So again, while I advise you to keep a pen and paper, you can also just follow along. We will share the PPT. Don't worry.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, Rishabh, please continue.
Yeah, sorry guys, my dad was making popcorn, so he just came into my room. You'll have to excuse me, I'm so sorry. Uh, so as I was saying, so Mary Shelley, she wrote Frankenstein, and I don't know for Vishwat Sir's classes or anything, but for English at least, you don't have to make any notes. These are very basic things. We
So
are
you all
just
are
going
getting a
through
free pass,
everything.
huh, in Rishabh Sir's class.
These are very
Good.
simple.
They will like
The
your class.
only thing, yeah, the only thing that you have to do is do all the worksheets that I send you, because that's the most important thing. Practice and trying to review whatever you've learned is the most important. These are pretty basic things. These are simple things. But when combined together and when asked in an exam, that's what you have to do. You don't have to become a master of English. You don't have to get a PhD or in English or whatever. You just have to clear CLAT exam, and this is what CLAT asks. CLAT asks basic things like figures of speech, like comprehension, basic vocabulary. Vocabulary also we'll do in from next month. We'll begin, focusing on vocabulary also. I have some plans for that. I'm finalizing that also. So just you don't have to do that. Just do all the worksheets that I send you. That's the most essential thing. Okay. Otherwise, you don't worry, Shantanu, you chill. I'll give you enough grief in my GK classes, enough work. So you chill in English. So Mary Shelley, as I was saying, she wrote Frankenstein in less than a year, and she was the fastest. The other two guys were writing poems, and she wrote a novel in less than a year, faster than those two men, and created this wonderful masterpiece that all of you, if you haven't read, should read, which is Frankenstein, which basically talks about what if we take science to the extreme levels and we create something. This was the first kind of book that talked about how what will happen if science creates something which even the creator cannot control, and there's a monster. So there's and the monster, then it also, what if that thing develops feelings, what if that thing has emotions, falls in love. These are the things that she discusses. It's a very, very tremendous book. So, oh, stars and clouds and winds, ye are all about to mock me. If ye really pity me, crush sensation and memory, let me become as naught. But if not, depart, depart, and leave me in darkness. What is it trying to say? Basically, it's just saying that stars, clouds, they're all twinkling. Stars are twinkling in the sky. The clouds are rumbling. The winds are flowing, and they are all mocking the protagonist, because the protagonist is sad, and the protagonist feels empty inside. So even this animation, this behavior, so this is basically what I'm saying. So apostrophe, she has personified the stars and clouds and wind, so it feels like they are mocking the author and the protagonist and the protagonist's emotional state at this point. So the protagonist says that you just go away, you just let me be nothing, you just calm down, you just stop, let me be nothing. But if you cannot do that, then you just go away, and leave me in the dark as inside my heart. Beautiful, right? You should read Frankenstein. This was apostrophe, special form of personification, where the dead or the absent are directly addressed. In personification, they're just personified or given human traits. In apostrophe, they're addressed to directly. Like this rabbit is saying, "Oh death, where is thy sting?" Or this cat. Sorry, this is a cat photo. So sorry. So this is, "Oh lovely orange, you golden treat. Oh tell me, why aren't you easy to eat?" This is saying to an orange. This is apostrophe. Then the next is hyperbole. Hyperbole is overstatement. So when our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji says, "Mera 56 inch ka seena hai." Obviously, does not. He's not Hulk Hogan. For those of you who don't know Hulk Hogan, he was a wrestler in WWE. You're probably too young to know about Hulk Hogan, but he comes around every SummerSlam or something like that. So hyperbole is overstatement, trying to become emphatic. 56 inch ka seena hai.
I think the
So,
best example of hyperbole would be the US President Donald Trump, right? We will build a wall. It will be the biggest, most beautiful wall. Even when he got coronavirus, he said like, I had the best antibodies that anyone could ever have. The doctors, when they examined my body, they said that I don't have DNA, I have USA. All of this stuff is just hyperbole, and it is also referred to as hubris. Hubris means total bullshit, which is what Donald Trump speaks, right?
yeah, and which is what people or leaders all around the world are trying to emulate. Uh, so, like this example, this poster says hyperbole is without a doubt the single greatest thing in the history of the universe. It's not the single greatest thing in the history of the universe. The single greatest thing in the history of the universe is Netflix. We all know that. But this is an overstatement. This is trying to be emphatic. This is trying to hyperbole, play upon what it is, drum it up. And when you say that, I've told you a million times, I've said this, हम तुमको लाख बार बोल चुके हैं, I've told you a million times. You have made the same mistake thousands of times. Or when Iron Man says to his daughter, "I love you 3,000." This is all hyperbole. This is trying to be emphatic in what you are trying to convey by overstating whatever the statement is. So, like this cyanide and happiness uh, thing, he says, "I will literally die if you don't stop using hyperboles incorrectly." This is also
You all
overstatement.
should check out Cyanide and Happiness. It's like a cartoon strip, but it's like really, really good. You know, it's not like your childish or children's cartoon. It's like really, really witty humor. Along with Cyanide and Happiness, you can also check out Pearls Before Swine. These will just increase your like EQ. You know.
Uh, then the next one is euphemism. Euphemism consists in the description of a disagreeable thing by an agreeable name. So you are telling me a fairy tale, which is basically saying that you are lying to me. You are lying to my face. Good news, dear. I'm going to be spending more time with the family. He's trying to convey that he got laid off. Basically, he was, and so when you say that the old man passed away, you say that he was old, he died, but you say that they passed, they went to a next world, they went to a better place. You say that just to be agreeable when saying a disagreeable thing. Because if you just say, someone's family member has died and you say, कि हाँ बुड्ढा मर गया क्या? Then they'll obviously thrash you. But when you say, कि हाँ, they passed away, then they're like, yes, yes, yes. Then there is antithesis. In antithesis, there's a striking opposition or contrast of words or sentiments made in the same sentence. This is also to emphasize everything, whatever we are discussing today. These are all used, these devices, when you start reading, and which I recommend you all to do. I recommend you to start reading more and more, because that's essential. That's basically what I have learned in 4 years of law school. That is what a lawyer's job is. You have to just read documents, you have to understand them, and then you have to create new documents of your own. Am I right, Vishruth sir?
That is basically law school in a nutshell, and that's basically lawyer's life in a nutshell. So
Yeah,
if you pick it up, the sooner you pick it up, the better it will be for you.
you'll be able to read faster. And people say you don't go after those speed reading books, because they're all shusha, they're all scams. because at a time you can only process like 6 or 5 bits of information. You can only, your brain can only register that much information. You can't read a single page, a whole page in like a glance or something. Like people claim to do that.
Right.
They're just
Yeah.
they're just making you fools of you. They have memorized the entire book and they're just trying making fools of you to take your money. But the more you read, but it is true that the more you read, the more you develop the habit of just trying getting the meaning of what the broad strokes of what the passage or the paragraph or the page is trying to say or the chapter is trying to say in the least amount of time that you can. So I implore all of you to pick up reading and preferably non-fiction, because that's what your lives are going to be like as lawyers. You have to stay on top of the goings on in the world. You have to know all some things about everything, because even if you don't practice that in your daily work life, you will run into relatives and friends who will always ask you random questions about random issues going on in the world and expect you to have a reasoned and issue based answer ready for everything. And if you don't do that, they'll think they won't trust you as a lawyer, and basically a lawyer's job is based on trust. So I ask you all to start reading, and if you want recommendations, then I can recommend a good number of books to you, and you should all read in your free time. We all have a lot of free time. You can read then, and obviously I won't go about recommending books to all of you. I can share a list of books that I have, and you can read them. And if you have, after reading those books, if you have some insights to discuss, then we can also do that. Coming back to antithesis. So when you try to emphasize by making a contrast between two things, and you say the speech is silver but silence is golden, this is a very good example, because here there are two uses of antithesis. The first use is the contrast between speech and silence, and the other is between silver and gold. Silver and gold are valuable metals and used in ornaments. Speech is contrasted with silence. This is a very good example of antithesis. Then we also use love and hate, good and evil, peace and war, and nowadays Sangi and Liptard. Then there is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a special form of antithesis, where two contradictory qualities are predicted at once of the same thing. When you say I am busy doing nothing, what does doing nothing means? Doing nothing means nothing. It has no meaning. It's absurd. But when you say them, but it is understood that you are trying to say that you are actually not doing anything. So I am not doing anything, and that's taking up my whole time. So basically you're being complacent, you're being procrastinative, and you are saying that I am busy doing nothing. Another thing is pretty ugly. When we say pretty ugly, what is pretty ugly? And ugly are antonyms. Antonyms means words that mean opposite of each other. And but we use these things. We say known secret. This is a known secret. There's there was orderly creation. There's a magic to the madness. So when people say, so all you football fans, when you have your Messi and Ronaldo debates and arguments among your friends, you say that there is magic to their madness, this, that, all of this deafening silence, pin drop silence. You know where this, when our teachers say, this is also very interesting. So when all our teachers, I am assuming all your teachers, because all Indian teachers are the same school teachers. So my teachers used to say, I want pin drop silence in the class. Why do they want, what does pin drop silence mean? Pin drop silence means that they want the class to be so silent that even if a pin drops, they can hear it, which is not possible, because they are the ones, usually school teachers are the ones that are making the most noise. But That's what they mean. So deafening silence, confirmed rumor. A rumor can never be confirmed. It's gossip. But confirmed rumor, awfully nice. How can someone be awful and nice at the same time? These are all oxymorons. They're trying when you try to elevate the quality of one word by using its opposite meaning word or its antonym to qualify that word. So when you qualify doing nothing with being busy, you are using the figure of speech, which is oxymoron and which is a special form of antithesis because you are contrasting between being busy and doing nothing. Then epigram. An epigram is a brief pointed saying frequently introducing antithetical ideas which excite, surprise, and arrest attention. So mankind must put an end to war, or wars will put an end to mankind. What is it saying? What is this saying? This saying is introducing two antithetical ideas. The first antithetical idea is that if that human beings should put an end to the war or war and because if human being, and the other is war will put an end to mankind. So basically what John F. Kennedy tried to say was, if human beings we go on, and he was a president in the 1960s. So he was a president during the peak of the Cold War. That was when he was the one who started America in the space race by promising that they will put a man on the moon before the sixth decade of the 20th century ended. And they did end up doing that in July 1969 when Neil Armstrong took a small step for man, but a giant leap for humanity, which again is a figure of speech. And I will ask you at the end of the class when we have discussed all figures of speech, which one Neil Armstrong used when he said those famous words. So John F. Kennedy at the peak of the space Cold War, when everyone used to think, so basically what had happened that after 1945, there were two superpowers in the world. And this is for those of you who don't know, okay, these are demo classes. So I am assuming that none of, and this is also where we're starting at the very basic level. I'm assuming that none of you knows anything, and that's what I'm building upon, so that in a couple of months, or say even a month, if you just go along with what I ask you to do, we will be having a free flowing discussion, all of us. Okay. So basically what happened, you must have studied the Russian Revolution in your history textbooks. And so what happened in Russia was the monarch Tsar Nicholas was thrown out and the Communist Party took over. So they made Russia a communist state. What is communism? Communism is basically saying that if a country produces, say, 100 units of sugar, then and the country has 20 citizens, and one citizen produces 100 units of sugar, then every citizen will get 5 or whatever they need. It depends, because there's a whole spectrum of socialism, communism. We'll discuss that when we discuss GK and current affairs. So basically what it says, that taking the welfare created by the citizens and distributing them amongst everyone. That is what communism is. While capitalism, which is what America follows, says that the one who uh, produce those 100 units of sugar, they have the right to sell it to whoever they want at whatever price they want. So then they'll start a bidding while everyone else, like all the other 19 citizens, will try to buy the sugar from them, and they'll make money. So this is what capitalism is. Capitalism is individuals or entrepreneurs trying to make money for themselves, and that in turn helping the country, the society. While communism is that the welfare of the country is distributed amongst its citizens. So what happened was in World War II, United States of America and Russia, they were on the same side. They were against Hitler in the Central Axis, the Nazi powers, the Germany, Italy, Mussolini's Italy, then Japan. They were on one side, and UK, France. France had no choice because Germany took over France, but France, UK, US, Russia, they were on the other side. They were the uh, Axis powers, Allied powers, and the German side are called the Central Axis. So what happened was that we all know US, UK, Russia, they won the war. And so after the war, US and Russia emerged as the two, when it was called the Soviet Union back then, they emerged as the two biggest superpowers of the world. And they started fighting these proxy wars all around the globe. So what would happen is that Soviet Union would try to influence the citizens to revolt against their leader, their absolute leader, or their dictator or monarch, and try to form a communist state, which is what they successfully helped establish in countries like Cuba and Venezuela. And what the US wanted to do was US wanted to establish a capitalist network in the world where it would have access to all the markets. The US was in the 1930s, the US had industrialized itself heavily. So it had a lot of stuff to sell, and it just wanted markets to sell that stuff to. It did not care about stopping communism or nothing. There's nothing. Politics and state affairs are nothing about ideas. They're just about trying to get the best for yourself. So America wanted to establish capitalist uh, countries, governments everywhere where the markets would be open to them to sell their stuff. And the Soviet Union wanted to establish this communist states everywhere. And this was the scariest period in human history, probably because, for the entire globe, because after 1945 and Hiroshima Nagasaki bombings, the United States had nuclear weapons, and soon Soviet Union also developed nuclear weapons. So they basically followed a policy of mutually assured destruction, where they were saying ki, I'll also have weapons, you also have weapons. So if we fire on each other, then we'll all die, which is what will dissuade you, which is what is an incentive for you to not fire that weapon. Because the moment you fire your nuclear weapon on me, I will also fire my nuclear weapon on you, and we'll all die. Because, and this was mutually assured destruction, which is acronymed very suitably as MAD. So they used to follow this policy, and they used to stockpile, build lots of weapons, stockpile them all across the globe, try to surround all the countries and keep and establish military bases where their missiles would have firing range into the mainland US or mainland Soviet Union. That's when John F. Kennedy, the American president, who was assassinated. John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and until then, like within the 19th century, it used to happen. But after John F. Kennedy, American politics changed a lot, and there's a great picture on that. There's a great film, Jackie, based on his wife and her life, Jacqueline Kennedy, which you should watch in your free time. Not of course when you're attending my classes. Where you should watch that film. And the Cold War went on till the 1990, like 1991, when Soviet Union, 1990, when Soviet Union collapsed under Mikhail Gorbachev. We'll discuss all of that. These are all things. They are very interesting things. There are very interesting stories. that I want to discuss with you regarding all of these. But we have to focus on the task at hand, which is to finish this presentation in the designated time. And so we move on to the next example of epigram, which is live simply so that others may simply live. So you are introducing antithetical ideas that if you are simple in your living, others will also be able to simply live. This is to excite. Then there is irony. Irony is a mode of speech in which the real meaning is opposite of that which is literally conveyed. So when you go to your parents and you say, Ki, can I go for a night out or a sleepover with my friends? And they say, Ki, हाँ, जो करना है करो. They don't mean जो करना है करो. They mean that you're not allowed to go. But they're trying to say that just to be funny. And this is basically what irony is. Irony is people trying to be funny, and it's a very commonly used figure of speech in comedy, where you try to where you say the exact opposite of what you're trying to mean, and your tone or the context of your passage where it is written explains what whether it actually is the opposite of what the intended meaning is. This example: for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. So this is from William Shakespeare's masterpiece Julius Caesar, where Julius Caesar, being the first dictator of Rome. Okay, this is also very. So I'm so sorry I keep doing this, but these are all very interesting stories. These are all very interesting contextual things that I love to share with you. And I hope that this is not boring you, because these are basically things which which are fascinating, which just fascinate me, and I hope that they fascinate you too, or I try to transfer that fascination like to you. So in so before Julius Caesar, Rome had a democracy, not a total democracy, but say a republic system where you appoint the head of state. So the system was there that there was a senate which was elected by the people, and also used to have the most influential families of Rome. And then there was the general, like the army chiefs. They used to be the consuls. They used to be consuls, yes. So Julius Caesar was a consul along with his friend Pompey. And what happened was that Julius Caesar, he was so successful as a military general that he won far-fetched lands. He won France, which was Gaul back then. He defeated a lot of barbarians, according to Romans. And the word barbarian also is very interesting because it comes from the fact that when people used to fight or visit new places, then they couldn't understand what the other people were saying. So if you go, for example, from India and you go to fight in Japan or China or something like that, and people are saying something, you don't understand that. You don't understand what they're trying to say. And it all sounds bar to you. That's how a foreign people who speak a foreign language came to be known as barbarians. And because the Romans were the most powerful civilization at that time, they painted their writers, their authors, their playwrights, their poets. They all painted the foreign people who speak a foreign language in a very bad light. They said that they're savages, they are uncivilized, they're brutes. And brute word also comes from Brutus, which we'll come to in just a second. So that's what basically barbaric word comes from, which is bar. This is what happens in language, a word starts off as something else, and then because of human manipulation becomes something else. Because as we all have heard so many times, it's the victor that writes the history. So before Julius Caesar, there was a republic system where the people used to elect their own heads. That the Senate used to elect the consuls, which were the military generals, the military heads of Rome, and there used to be two consuls to check each other's power, to act as checks and balances. And this is a very important concept: checks and balances. This is a, if you'll read this in, you study this in legal history, you study this in administrative law, you study this in almost every single law subject in college. When you study, especially those that are related to making policy and thinking about what government policy should be, in all of them you will at some point or another come across the phrase checks and balances, which is basically to say you are trying to make parity, bring parity between the different stakeholders of a situation. Okay, so when you say, for example, bureaucrats or government officers as we know them, so when bureaucrats have a lot of power, when they have to handle money, government's money and accounts and something like that, there are internal audits that happen in departments. Then there are vigilance commissions. There's also a vigilance commission in NUJS, which oversees all the incomings and outgoings of the college society's funds, like how much money is coming, the cultural society, what are you doing with that money, whether you are actually using it to conduct events, cultural events, and promote cultural activity in college, or you're just using it to go out and party and have dosas with your friends. So basically, this is what checks and balances mean. So that is why Rome had two consuls. What Caesar did, Caesar became so powerful that he elected himself, he got himself elected. The Senate used to elect the consuls. He got himself elected consul for life. He got himself elected consul for life. And he was so poor because he had won so much, uh, so much of land that the Roman people could, you know, grow vegetables and, you know, use as agricultural land now. And then he had brought in so much loot along with his army that he had the full support of the people. And so he elected himself, he got himself elected consul for life. So that checks and balances that was there just vanished. So there was one, so he had a group of senators. There was a group of senators, and this is all as per William Shakespeare. So this is fictionalized version of Julius Caesar's life. So there was a group of senators led by this guy called Cassius, uh, who felt that Caesar was becoming too powerful, very powerful. And he was destroying what Rome was, the essence of Rome, the republic that Rome was. So they plotted to kill Caesar. And Brutus was Caesar's best friend. He was Caesar's. There's this phrase in. Uh, Never mind. He was Brutus's. Brutus was Caesar's very close friend, and Cassius somehow by warning Brutus of all the harms of having a consul for life, he got Brutus to come over to his side, and then a group of senators one day they called Caesar for a meeting. Yeah, like what happens in most gangster films, they call them for a meeting, and then they all stabbed him. And Brutus, as per William Shakespeare, stabbed Julius Caesar in the back, which is where the phrase stabbing in the back. You stabbed me in the back. You betrayed me. That's what it means. That's where it comes from. From Brutus stabbing Caesar in the back in William Shakespeare's play. So when Mark Antony was, oh, So when Mark Antony was Caesar's follower, and he was also friends with his nephew uh, Augustus. And as per a lot of sources of that time, Mark Antony was the lover of Egyptian queen Cleopatra, and Cleopatra was the woman who started using the use of lipstick as a makeup. And at that time, they used to make lipstick from pomegranate juice. That's also a very interesting trivia. Cleopatra. Excuse me. Let me just get some water. My throat is parched. So at Caesar's funeral, Mark Antony, who was Caesar's follower and disciple, he gave a speech, which is a brilliant piece of literary work by William Shakespeare, where he said that Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. And by men, he is referring to the co-conspirators of Cassius and Brutus who killed Caesar. Because he's basically saying that Caesar was the honorable man and they're all dishonorable. So this is the opposite of what he's saying with his words. Then there's a pun. The pun is a use of a word in such a way that it is capable of more than one application, which the object being to produce a ludicrous effect. So, what we say in Desi English, double meaning, that's basically what pun is. When a word has two meanings in the sentence. For example, is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. So this has two meanings. First, that if life is life worth living, it depends on the liver, which liver means the human being who is living that life. And the other meaning is it depends on the liver, because if you don't drink alcohol, because alcohol, when you drink alcohol, it causes cirrhosis in your liver. Cirrhosis is a disease in which your liver starts like your liver cells start to die, and this is called it is caused by alcoholism, which is drinking excessive alcohol for an elongated period of time, years probably for most people. So this is the two words. It's a pun is trying to be funny by using a word in such a way that you have two meanings. It depends on the liver, it depends on the liver. Though I don't agree personally with this example, because I don't know what worth living a life without alcohol would have, but that's for another day, and that's for when you guys come to college. This is not, uh, this will get cut from the recording, I'm sure.
No,
So
no, I'll leave it in that. Like, honestly, like, college is the phase where life is not worth living without alcohol. I think, like, before college, like the students right now, and after college, like me, there's no alcohol. I think alcohol exists in that tiny bubble called college. So I think, like, you all should get there as soon as possible, so that you all can experience it for yourselves.
yeah. So coming to the next figure of speech, which is metonymy, which literally means change of name. And coming to literal meanings of things, which is vocabulary. As I said earlier, also we'll focus on vocabulary from next week onwards. I'll present a plan. We will discuss that on the Telegram channel, and we'll work something out. Okay. There are a couple of sources that I want you to regularly check out for vocabulary and be up to date with, and keep up with the class, and we'll discuss all of that in the channel. So metonymy is a figure of speech where an object is designated to be the name of something else, which is generally associated with it. So this example says the crown for the king, which has now become the crown for the Netflix show. And so this is what it means: the crown for the king, the bench for the Supreme Court or High Court or whichever court judges. This is metonymy, a change of name where you designate someone with some general association. So when the court gives an order, they say that the court brought the gavel down. The gavel is something that only a judge uses. So that is associated with the judge. It's an example of metonymy. Then there is synecdoche. Synecdoche is where a part is used to designate the whole, or the whole is used to designate the part. So, give us the day our daily bread, which means the bread is used to designate everything. Everything. The bread is a basic food item. Everyone in Europe, this is European, this is English, so this is Eurocentric, which means it is focused heavily on European experiences and experiences of Europeans. So bread is a staple. Like we have our staple wheat, roti, and rice. Similarly, most European countries have bread as their staple food. So when you say give us the day our daily bread, it means give us enough to subsist, enough to live our lives. This is where a whole is used to indicate. Then the England won the first test match against Australia. England here does not mean the entire country of England. It of course means the English cricket team, which won a test against Australia. So here a part, which is the English cricket team, because they're representing their country, they're used to designate the entire country, which is the whole. And this is an example of synecdoche. Then there is transferred epithet. In this figure of speech, an epithet, which is a word or phrase describing a person or a thing, is transferred from its proper word to another that is closely associated with it in the sentence. For example, dreamless sleep, or it was a fun day. So your experience was fun. Your experience was having fun. Your experience was not dreaming. Your experience was not sleep. Your experience was not day. Okay, this is what transferred epithet is. There are some types of transferred epithet and how you distribute that epithet. Plump, rosy cheeked, wholesome, apple faced young woman. Where then this is string epithets, where a string of epithets are used to describe the young woman. And then there is transferred epithets: sleepless pillow, merry hours, unbreakfasted morning, drunken dark, things like this. Then there is light oats, and it doesn't matter, because basically and I would also like to address this at this point of time. If you are very hesitant about your pronunciation or your vocabulary or your grammar when you speak, and that is what discourages you from speaking, then you should not be discouraged at all, because most of the people you'll find in your life are talking out of their asses. They don't know what they mean. They don't know half of the things that they're saying. And so you should, as long as you convey the meaning, the broad meaning of what you're trying to say, and hopefully with the work that we'll do in this course, you'll always be able to convey the exact meaning of what you're trying to say. As long as you do that, it's fine what you pronounce. If you, however you say that word, whatever your diction is, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you are trying to say, the idea that you're conveying. Always remember that. So in litotes, an affirmative is conveyed by negation of the opposite. So the effect being to suggest a stronger expression by means of a weaker. It is opposite of hyperbole. So when you say hyperbole, you over exaggerate something. In litotes, you underplay something, and then using negation. So when in this example, the man is no fool. So you say that he is not a fool, which means that he is clever, very clever actually. So you are using fool, which is underplaying cleverness, because a fool is not clever, and you are trying to negate that with the use of the word no to indicate an affirmative expression. Affirmative means positive, that the person is very clever because they are not a fool.
Like you are overextending the analogy to something which is like inordinately or disproportionately small. Like if I say Mount Everest is not a molehill, obviously it's
Hmm.
not. Like I could have said that Mount Everest is not a reasonably sized mountain. Also, I could have said Mount Everest is not Kanchenjunga because it's like even much taller than Kanchenjunga. But what I'm saying is Mount Everest is not a molehill, so I'm comparing it to something so small that obviously it's not. If I say like, if I say like, let's say, Amitabh Bachchan, he's not like a Rajpal Yadav. So I would not compare Amitabh Bachchan straight away with Rajpal Yadav, right? I will say like he's not an average actor. He's not like Shah Rukh Khan. So I'm saying like Amitabh Bachchan is better than Shah Rukh Khan. That's a fair comparison. But if I'm comparing him with something that is like totally obviously not comparable, that would make it a little.
And speaking of Rajpal Yadav, I don't know if you guys know this, but Rajpal Yadav very recently spent an extended period in prison because he had made a picture for which he had borrowed like 5 crores or something like that from a producer, and the film flopped at the box office, so he could not pay back the money, and because of which he had to go to jail. And this is why we hadn't seen him for a long time on the silver screen, but now he's come back and he started doing films again. So another example of litote would be, there isn't anything I won't eat when I'm hungry, which means I will eat anything when I'm hungry, which is exactly what I am. I'm hungry, and which is why I'm eating this popcorn while teaching you. And I hope you all excuse that. Then there is interrogation, which is rhetorical question. So interrogation is
I'm
asking a
sure
question
everyone is
not for.
eating popcorn. It's just that your video is on. That's all.
Yeah. So I saw this meme yesterday where basically it was saying that students in online classes are doing what teachers do during examination in the hall.
Yeah, that's true.
So interrogation is the asking of a question not for getting an answer, but to put it a point out more effectively. The best example of rhetorical questions is what the character Sheldon Cooper regularly does in Big Bang Theory. He asks questions to make himself sound, to show the other person that they're clever by asking them stupid questions, by asking them questions that he does not expect an answer to, but he just puts them out just to show that he's smarter than them. Some examples of interrogation as a figure of speech would be, are you crazy? Obviously, I don't, if I'm talking to you, I'm like, I'm assuming that if I'm having a reasoned discussion with you, you're not mentally ill. You don't have mental, like, you might have mental health issues, but you're not crazy.
Of unsound mind, as we say, according to Contract Act.
Unsound mind, according to contract act. And contract act also, when you study contract act in your first semester, I and this is also a point, that there's this Bible of contract written by Mullah. There was this eminent legal mind, Mullah, who wrote the Bible on contract law in India. And in its preface, he says that when you read the contract law, you see how patronizing it is towards Indians. You see that like the examples that they use, it's as if the writers of that statute are trying to explain basic things like if I do something for you, then you owe me money. They're trying to explain that to a child. That's the level of the language of the text of Contract Act. And when you study contract law in your first semester in college, in law school, I want you to you know remember this and appreciate this fact, because they used to think that we were uncivilized, uncouth people, and they had to civilize us, they had to teach us the ways of their world, and which is why they were talking down on us in all the laws that they made for us, and those are the laws that we use now. So basically we are looking down upon ourselves through the laws. Then can you imagine that? Of course you can imagine. If I'm telling you something, then of course you can imagine that. But I don't want your answer to that because it's boring. Then. If you poison us, do we not die? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Then there is anastrophe. Anastrophe
Rishabh,
is
can I
what?
ask you how many of these are left? Because, like, we are running out of time. We have
There's
only
like
maybe 2
five of
minutes.
these.
Okay,
Five
I
of
think we
these
can
left.
finish. I think we can finish 5 of these, and I think you had prepared a worksheet as well. So what we will do is we will circulate the worksheet on the group instead
Yes,
of
yes.
explaining it right now, so that students can do in their own time, and then we can discuss it later on. Okay?
I'll send the worksheet by midnight tonight, and then you guys can, like, you guys don't have to solve it right now. You just look through it, you try to come up with the answers on your own, and we'll discuss the worksheet in the next class. We'll begin the next class with discussing the worksheet.
Right.
I hope
Okay.
that
Fine.
works.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this is what Master Yoda uses: anastrophe, proceed you I shall. Strong with him the force is, with where the speaker essentially rearranges parts of sentences or phrases to change to for effect, to just to sound different, which is what the character of Master Yoda in Star Wars was. And Star Wars also is something that you should watch, all of you. But after you crack clat, that's when we will watch it together then. But first, we'll discuss exclamation, where an exclamatory form is used to draw greater attention to a point than a mere bold or plain statement of it could do. How sweet the moonlight up on this bank. So the moonlight is just shining on the bank. That's also what you can say. But because it looks so beautiful, the moonlight hitting the water, that you say that how sweet the moonlight is upon the water, upon the bank of the river, and upon the sand. This is exclamation. Then there is climax, which is the arrangement of a series of ideas in increasing importance, in ascending order. So, like in films, when you go watch movies, you have you have initial scenes which establish character positions, character points, what their aspirations are. Then then the picture, like every scene, takes you to an ultimate emotional cinematic experience at the end, after which you get closure or you get catharsis, whatever the case is, and it
It's
is called
also
the
called
climax because it's the crescendo. It's like
right.
the
It is
crescendo
also
of an
called
orchestra. Yeah.
yeah. It's also called denouement. So in the
Hmm.
movie, when everything becomes untangled, everything becomes clear. That's also called denouement. You can also call it climax and various different.
So climax is when you take something to an an extra level with every new idea. So there are three things that will endure: faith, love, and hope. But the greatest of these is love. This is where you, because you say that when there you say there are three things that will endure, then the listener is, what three things? And faith. Oh, acha, faith. Okay. Hope. Okay, okay, hope. And love. Oh, love. Is love the most important? Then you qualify that with, but the greatest of these is love, which means that you are using that order you were using those words in an ascending order. It's then the opposite of climax is anticlimax, where suddenly you go from higher to lower. It is mostly used in comedy. So he lost his family, his car, and his cell phone. So for his family, of course, for everyone, their family is the most important part of their lives. But it's like I said, this goes from higher to lower in a descending order. Climax goes in ascending order. So this image, for example, shows that human beings evolved from the great apes, and now we will become fish, which obviously we won't, because fish have came before us, before the great apes even.
I would say perfect example of anticlimax is Rahul Gandhi. Right. After you had the entire line of Gandhis, finally at the end of the day you had Rahul Gandhi, right? So that's the biggest anticlimax I can think about.
Or you can also think of MS Dhoni's latest IPL season also as an anticlimactic experience.
Right.
Because he has done so well and then disappointed everyone just after retiring in the first season. But anyway, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, which is a beautiful word. I just love this word, how it's spelled, how it's pronounced, everything about it. It is the formation of a word from a sound associated with what it is named. Cuckoo, sizzle, then there is the last figure of speech that we will discuss, which is paraprosdokian. Paraprosdokian. Paraprosdokian, which says where a sentence or a phrase is used in such a way that the latter part, the last part of it, causes the audience to rethink the former part. So when you say your argument is sound, just sound, lots of sound, the listener will be taken aback. They'll think, huh? Your argument is sound. Like, oh, okay. Thank you. And then just sound. What? So are you saying that my argument doesn't make any sense? Then they said lots of sound. Oh, you're saying that my argument makes no sense because it was just not sound to you. It was a cacophony of noises. Then that is what paraprosdokian is. And another example, master the paraprosdokian figure and you're well on your way to a career in comedy, because it's used a lot in comedy. For example, Homer Simpson in the hugely successful long-running show that I'm sure all of you have heard about, Warner Brothers, The Simpsons. If I could just say a few words, I'd be a better public speaker. And on this humorous note, I will stop this class, and 5 minutes are left, so I think we could stop here, and I'll see you tomorrow for current affairs and GK, and it will be a more interactive class, more interacting than this one. This was the first time I'm doing this, so this was a test run for you guys, and also there's a demo for me as well. But from tomorrow, things will be more intensive, and I'll push you harder. So over to you, Vishnu.
Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Rishabh Sir at this point? Okay. Did you all enjoy Sir's class? Please raise your hand if you did. I certainly enjoyed this class a lot because there was a lot of trivia and a lot of information available which even I didn't know some things about. So great. So I think many of the students did enjoy. I personally certainly enjoyed your class. It was very entertaining and a lot of information was there apart from the PPT itself, which we couldn't have known otherwise. And addressing the students now, it's like I have been on a search for good faculty members for past 2 weeks, and I have interviewed around maybe like let's say 15 people. Okay, of course there was no interview required for Shovik Da, Shavik sir, and neither for our Abhishek sir, who's our math teacher, because he has been teaching already in the past as well. But for the English and GK teacher, I was really looking out. I shortlisted few candidates, but at end of the day, I found Rishabh to be most suitable for both subjects. He came up to me and he said, like, GK is the reason he got into NUGS. His GK is so strong that was the single factor that he would count. That got him into NUGS. And a lot of you all come to me and say that, sir, GK was the factor that got me out of the CLAT. I was doing very well, but GK was the one that ruined me. Out of 40 marks, I scored 15 or 25, whatever. Right, that was the difference maker. So I really feel like, Rishabh will really fix your GK part of it, okay? Because I have seen his knowledge of GK. It is very, very in depth. Today, just from the English class, you could have gotten a sense of his GK abilities. And then, having interviewed him for GK, I found him really, really suitable for English as well. I thought, like, this is one person who can do the trick for both subjects, okay? As you all saw how he conducted the class in English, I found it to be extremely competent and entertaining. And GK also, I can assure you, is even more so, because that is his stronghold and his strong point. Okay. Meanwhile, please feel free to ask any questions. He has already come up with a plan, a teaching plan, teaching pedagogy for me to see, and I quite agree with his, kind of roadmap for CLAT, which he has mapped out for 2021, both in English and in GK, which will hold useful for not only CLAT but also IELTS and the other exams. Okay, so like he taught you today, figures of speech, that is useful for CLAT, it is useful for IELTS and others as well. Okay, similarly, he's going to teach you vocabulary, some other methods for English as well as GK, which you will learn down the line. So I don't want to reveal everything right now. Let few things be surprises also. But rest assured, along with the teaching, there will also be a lot of worksheets, there will be discussions, there will be question answers, a lot of different things. But more than anything else, why I selected Rishabh, and that too for both the subjects, is because he's from NUGS and he's in NUGS right now. He's in 4th NUGS. So you can see the kind of personality that you have to aspire to become. Okay, so not only is your teacher, I would like you to consider him as some sort of role model also. Okay, minus the alcohol part that you will do for yourself once you get to college. Okay, but the other aspects of it you can pick up right now. You don't have to wait to go to college. Okay, so that is my advice to you. And the ones who have raised their hands, do you all have any questions? Otherwise, please lower your hands. If you have any questions, then I will call upon you all. Yes, Manisha, go ahead. Okay, I think she has mistakenly raised her hand. Okay. Shantanu, yes, go ahead.
Hello, sir. So what will be our, how are we going to approach GK? Like, will we do it editorial, or are we going to refer to it as topics wise?
What do you think we should do?
Sir, I guess we can do both. We can take a topic, we can understand the history of the topic, and then we can get into editorials.
What I was thinking was that I would recommend a book to all of you, which we'll use as a benchmark for GK, for static portion of GK. And I will ask you to read certain pages of it every week. And then I'll send some questions based on that, which will, and then the next week I'll send the keys to that question, those questions, and then we can discuss that in class for like 15 minutes or something like that. Because I don't want to focus too much on the static portion of GK, because there's just so much to cover that it won't be possible, just 1.5 hours a week. And which is why I think that it should be better if you read those pages on your own, and then I send questions. And if you have anything to discuss regarding that, then we can obviously always discuss that. So I hope that works for you. And otherwise we can do editorials, because that's how the CLAT pattern has become. So those worksheets will take care of your IELTS and everything. But for CLAT, I think we should focus majorly on comprehension, reading comprehension, especially with GK, because you have to read so many passages. For 150 questions, you have to read like approximately 30 passages. And in GK is probably the only subject where, the only portion where some questions are not from what is given in the passage. Like some questions are there which you can just get from, eliminating other options or from previous knowledge that you have, and most of them, like this year's paper, or at least the entirety of the GK portion was based on current affairs. So if we do it using editorials, then I think it would be beneficial, because you'll also be up to date with what's going on in the world, and then you won't have to read through every single passage. And so this is what we had planned. But if you have any other suggestions, if you like, all of you talk amongst yourself and then come up to me if you all have consensus on something that you think would work best for your needs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what we have planned so far, as Rishabh also mentioned, as far as static GK is concerned, I don't think you require, us to teach you about Lord Cornwallis and to teach you about Harappa civilization and those things that you will find within Lucent. And many of you who are going to retake the exam, I'm sure you already know static GK. I don't think it makes sense for us to tell you that who was the first viceroy, last viceroy in India, who is C. Rajgopalachari and all these things, and you are noting it down. Right. We are going to approach a slightly like a higher road than that method. We find that is very low hanging fruit. Okay. Rather, what we will do is discuss, broad topics which are of relevance. Like, for example, right now, the new Borat movie has come out. If you have heard of Borat, he's a fictional character by
Baron
Cohen. Right. Which is kind of a spoof on, America and the culture over there. Donald Trump, the real actual Donald Trump, has started a Twitter war with Borat. Okay. So this is where...
You're not audible, Vishud sir. No.
Am I audible now?
Yes, much better.
So what I was saying is that, the real Donald Trump has taken up a Twitter war with this fictional character, or rather the, actor behind it. And, like they have the saying that truth is stranger than fiction. Today we are living in the twilight zone. Okay, so these kind of things which, you would not regularly probably pick up, because normally you would pick up things, which kind of you would find anywhere. So these are topics which would form the basis of editorials. Okay, what is happening to America right now? It's not just that America is attacking Syria and al-Baghdadi has been killed and these kind of things you are expected to know. We will obviously cover those, but those will be covered by all this Manthan 2.0 and everything also. You can be rest assured. So you don't need Clatshore to do that for you. Okay, I would like to take, and Rishabh, we would like to take a slightly higher road, as I mentioned earlier. We would try to take a more logical reasoning approach to it, and you will see in the days that come how we are going to teach. We are going to teach both financial and non-financial aspects of editorials, along with a broad overview of what's happening in the world around you. Okay, so as far as GK is concerned, there is no end to GK. I don't know everything in the world. Rishabh doesn't know everything in the world. Even Amitabh Bachchan, with all his KBC experience, doesn't know everything. Okay, so you will need to supplement it. You need to supplement it with Lucent for your static GK. You need to supplement with Manthan, CLAT Gurukul, CLAT Path, CLAT whatever possible, and Career Launcher. They regularly give these free GK compendiums for your run-of-the-mill GK. Okay, but I want to give you something a little bit more relevant. Okay, when it comes to Clatshore, that you will see in the coming days what you are getting, starting with tomorrow, because you will have your GK class. I will also be around as I was today, but mainly it will be conducted by Rishabh Sir. Okay. Any other questions for today, or we can wrap up? Okay. I think that's all for now. I think it was a introductory class for all of you, just to get acquainted with Rishabh Sir's style of teaching, and this is pretty much what a person from NUJS looks like. Like, I think Rishabh is a good example of what we call Nuji. Okay, I mean, like, I am probably, if you see me and you think, okay, like this guy used to study in NUJS and this is how he is like now. Rishabh is an example of what you should aspire to become, because I was pretty similar to him back when I was in 4th, 5th year. Okay, So I really feel that this is Rishabh is not just a teacher, for your CLAT. I think he's a stepping stone to your CLAT success, and he should be a bridge between what you are right now and what you will be when you are in NUGS next year, okay, or NLS or NALSAR or any of these colleges. Mostly law school people are all the same, okay. There's a little bit of here and there difference, but mostly the breed is the same, okay. There's a breed of students who study in NIFT, right? There's a breed of students who study in IIT. Similar, there's a breed of students who study in NLU, and let me tell you, we are the best. Okay, and I would really, be the most happy person to have each one of you join us, join this league of NLU students. Okay, as soon as possible. Let's make it 2021 the year that your entire life changes for the better. Okay.
Yeah. I hope to positively interact with all of you next semester.
That's what we call ragging. Okay, so thank you so much, Rishabh, for taking this class today. I think we have all learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot of things which I didn't know. Okay, and knowledge can come from anywhere. So we are looking forward to your class tomorrow as well. So thank you for that, and thank you all for attending. I hope that you all gained something from this class, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you all.
Good evening, guys. See you tomorrow.